postmodern era. Okay. What does that mean? What's postmodernism? We've now come to, we've moved out of modernism. Who were the great thinkers in modernism? Kant, right? And Descartes, right? The great rationalists, Leibniz, all those guys. Right, but we've now moved into a postmodern period where ideas like weak thought, right, have become more popular. Right? We are more aware of our limits than ever before. At least that's what postmodernism kind of puts forward. Right? Look at the person who thinks they know it all. Right? What happens? Well, how about, Nazism or communism? Right? Great destruction happens. Right? When somebody gets in power and they have the idea that they know everything, that they know the truth. Right? So it's very, very sensitive. Postmodernism is to objectivity. And for a good reason. Right? For a good reason. Right? Objective truth is often seen to be totalitarian. Right? To be what they call strong thought. Right? And if you're in the camp of strong thought, and you're wrong, and you have power, right? You can do a lot of destruction. Right? And so postmodernism is sort of a reaction against modernism, a reaction against the great destructive forces, especially like Nazism and other things, colonialism, right? That went out and sort of suppressed peoples by being strong. Right? So the tagline of postmodernism is sort of like, let all flowers bloom. Right? Everyone has their own little view of the world. Everyone has a perspective on something, or has their perspective, right? And no one has the view from the mountaintop, right? Nobody's got it all. Everyone's got their own little truths, right? You can go ahead and live in your little world and have your worldview, but if you try to break out of your subjectivism to an objective truth, that would be moving towards strong thought, right? And it could be totalitarian. Okay, so that's, and obviously this would prevent one from affirming a truth which transcends their experience. We have to stay in weak thought, right? We can only really be poets. We can only really describe things. We can't affirm, God exists, or state some type of affirmative statement like that, which would apply everywhere and always. Okay? And another opponent to natural theology would be, right, just a simple empiricism. Right? What we know is through what we observe. Right? That's it. Anything else is unknowable, is uncertain. Right? Our senses are our limiting factor. Okay, we can't go beyond that. Any questions about some of that? You guys should all definitely take some philosophy. It's awesome. Okay.
Is like postmodernism similar to relativism?
It would not go as far. So there's postmodernism would try to hold on to some type of objectivity, but within your hermeneutic, they would say. But it's also a big term. It's essentially we're all postmoderns because we sort of live in a postmodern world. But not everyone's a relativist. Right? Relativism would mean what? That there's just no truth. Right? Truth is just relative to the person. Right? So they're closely related. But I would think relativism would be, from my perspective, more negative than postmodernism.
Is postmodernism similar to like agnosticism? Like because we like are limited, we can't know the truth, but there is truth. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's probably postmodern people though who are believers, you know, and so postmodernism describes, yeah, I mean most of them probably are not believers. They probably would tend towards an agnostic stance. So yeah, I think you could make that conclusion. They might not like maybe being called postmodern or agnostic. I'm not sure, but yeah, some of the great thinkers in postmodernism that would be definitive of it are usually atheists, agnostic. All right, but these are my arguments against these two. Okay, against the postmoderns, right? Right? Even though yes, we are limited. Certainly, we are creatures. We're not God, but we still have a desire to know. And a great desire, a transcendent desire, right? And to suppress this desire and to sort of give in to weak thought is a type of despair, right? And I can't really know the truth. No one can really know the truth, so I'm going to hide out in my own little camp and have my party with my friends, right? It's kind of the way, right? But there's something true about what postmoderns have said, right? And especially regarding questions like, does God exist? We arrive not at like an absolute certitude, right? Faith is always includes a step forward into obscurity, right? Faith is a light, but yet faith is always an act of faith, which is kind of, you know, what we mean by that is, right? We walk by faith, not by sight, as St. Paul says, right? And so postmoderns, they want to say that we can't arrive at absolute certitude, but we don't need that in a sense, right? We arrive at reasonable, the reasonable ability to affirm a truth, right? To make a judgment. I'll come back to that again. To make a judgment, yes, God does exist, is good for me to entrust myself to Him. That's the act of faith, right? It's not the certitude of math or logic, right? It's different. Okay, and against the empiricists, right? The ones who say, oh, we can just know what we observe, right? Well, the problem with that is that the human person is a mystery, and there's certain things about ourselves that we can't observe. Right? We have these desires for truth which are infinite. Right? And so we can't observe everything about ourselves, but yet we can know some things about ourselves. And that goes beyond our senses. So, now, with all that said, we now move on to not 20 arguments for God's existence, but one. Just going to do one, okay? So who's ready? Okay, does God exist? Yes or no? Who knows? We're gonna try to argue that He does right now, okay? And this is the classic argument from change, right? The argument from change, the argument from motion, okay? This is maybe one of the 5 ways that you may have heard of that St. Thomas Aquinas uses to prove that God exists. Okay? Now, this is the argument from change. So what is change, right? You put the cup of coffee on the table. What happens to the cup of coffee? It's cold. All right? Well, it wasn't cold before. It was warm before. Right? What happened? Change. So where did the coldness come from? Where did the cold come from?
It's the lack. It's the lack of heat.
It came from its lack of heat. The surrounding room, right? The room, right? The room was cold. If the room it was super hot. Will the coffee get cold? All right, how'd the room get cold?
Temperature's cold.
How'd that happen?
Lack of heat.
No, it's because somebody turned on the AC. Somebody turned on the AC. Right. And how did the AC get turned on? Well, somebody pushed the button. And that person pushed the button because they made a decision to push the button. Well, where'd that person come from? It came from parents. Right? And then you can move on over to that side of things and go all the way back, right? They came from their parents and their parents and their parents and their parents. Right? So, where do I come from? Right? I exist. Yet there was a time where I didn't exist. I was put into existence. I changed. I have changed, right? And you could say that my own existence right now is the actualization of a potential. Right? My essence is human nature, but I could not exist, right? I could cease to exist tomorrow, who knows? Right? But I was put into existence. Right? And so this is the argument from change, is that when you think about how change happens, right, there always must be a cause, right? A causal chain, which extends either back in time or back in a hierarchy. And if you keep going back and back and back and back and back infinitely, what you have is an infinite regress of causes. And if you allow for infinite regress, then you've explained nothing, right? You can't explain change unless there's a first mover, right? Unless there's something that was first put into motion. Okay? So this is the argument briefly, right? There cannot be an infinite regress of causes. There must be a first mover, because the motion I see right now can only be explained by something that was pure act, right? That set things in motion. Okay. All of this comes down to this idea that there cannot be an infinite regress of causes, right? And I have racked my brain around this stupid question for a long time. I mean, not all the time, but when I think of it, that's the question I have. Why can't there be an infinite regress of causes? You know? Why can't there be? And the answer to that is just that if you allow for that, then you don't explain. You cannot explain the motion you see here and now. The only thing to explain change is a pure act, right? God, who is pure act, who breathed the world into existence, right? Who set change in motion, right? Who actualizes potentials, right? That can explain the change that we see. And that is what all men call God, the first mover, the creator, the one who is pure act, who is, we have some Latin words here, who is ipse esse subsistens, right? Which means the pure act of being. His substance is being itself. Right? So God is existence. He is existence. Right? He is the pure act of existence. His essence is the act of existence. Okay, we exist, but that's not our essence, because we may cease to exist. And there was a time when we didn't exist. And so our essence is a human nature, which has been given existence. But God is the pure act of existence. And he decided to create, and we'll get to that later. I don't know why he did, but we wouldn't be here without it, so that's pretty cool. But that's the argument from motion, from change. That we can't explain anything unless there's a first mover, God who's pure act, right? With no potentiality, no potential to change. Okay? Now, do you buy it? Do you like it?
Yeah.
Ben likes it? Yeah, it's. I mean, there's other ways to talk about it, but that's kind of the basic gist of that argument, right? That motion that we see, we cannot leave an infinite regress of causes. There must be a first cause. Now, if that's the case, then we can answer our question. Yes. God exists. But some people object. Some people object, right? And there's a common objection that we're going to go over tonight. This will be the last thing I think. Okay? There's a common objection, right? And that's the problem of evil. The problem with evil, right? And everyone wrestles with this problem, right? In the Catechism, it says that God expects this question from us. All right, so again, if you have a problem with evil, then that's good, because God's expecting you to. Okay? He's expecting you to go to him and ask him about it. All right? And there's two types of evil, right? There's moral evil and there's natural evil. What is evil? Evil is a privation of what is good. Right? It has no positive existence of itself. Right? Blindness is an evil. It's the absence of sight. Right? It's a privation. Right? The Catechism says that when we come up against this objection, this problem, that there's going to be no quick answer. So I don't have a ton of time left in class, but I'll try to give an answer. But there's no quick answer, okay? There's no quick answer to this question. And it's a question that God expects from us, that we wrestle with it. Right? And so, and this is a crazy picture, a bunch of tornadoes, right? Natural evil. There you go. I do want to see that. That'd be pretty cool. Alright. So moral evil is rather easy to talk about. Right? We can see that our own sin causes evil. This is a quote from Ratzinger. Sometimes we feel like saying to God, if you'd only made us man a little less great, then he would be less dangerous. Right? So great leaders, people with great power have the potential to do great evil. Right? And this is moral evil. It comes in many shapes and forms. Right? Right? The alcoholic mother, right, who drinks and has a child who comes into this world deprived of normal physical function. Right? That's an evil. That came from sin. Right? From the mother drinking alcohol while she was pregnant. Right? So that's usually not the biggest objection to moral evil. Right? Even the death of Christ, right, is a moral evil, right? To murder someone. But as St. Augustine says, God judged it better to bring good out of evil than to suffer no evil to exist. I probably should have saved that quote for a little later, but I put it a little too early. But anyways, that's moral evil. It's not usually the biggest objection. The bigger objection is usually physical evil, right? Still physical evil, which we hold is still a result of the fall of man, right? So I didn't touch on this, but why is there moral evil? Why is there sin? Because man rebelled and fell. Our first parents, Adam and Eve, sinned. Right? We'll have another class on the fall of man. But physical evil is also still a result of the fall. Meaning that before Adam and Eve sinned, right, in the garden, right, they were at peace. The creation was at peace. They were in the garden. It was harmonious. Right? After the fall, God says, cursed is the ground because of you, right? Even the order that was supposed to be in creation has now been corrupted, right? Even though it was man who sinned, his sin affected all of creation. Cursed is the ground because of you. In toil you shall eat its yield all the days of your life. Thorns and thistles it shall bear for you, and you shall eat the grass of the field. Right? St. Paul in the New Testament says, we know that all creation is groaning in labor pains even until now. Like the sky is definitely groaning when it has like 8 tornadoes, right? That's pretty crazy. Right? We know that all creation is groaning. Right? This is still a result of the fall of man. And so how do we wrestle with it, right? How do we come to understand why this is allowed? Okay. Well, you can explain it, I guess, just from the fall of man, right? There wouldn't be any physical evil if there had been no sin, right? So that's a certain conclusion you can come to there. But there's usually we want more than that, right? And so this poor child is sick. Why is this child sick? We want to know. Okay, so physical evil. Aquinas says that God allows evil, right, because he is concerned with the greater good. So the evil that he allows, even the physical evil that he allows, is a rather small piece of the picture. Now maybe we're right next to it. Maybe the tornado hit our town, right? But still, in the grand picture of all creation, that is a small piece, right? And so Aquinas says that God, who provides universally, he allows some little defect to remain, lest the good of the whole be hindered. Right? Meaning that God has a much broader view than we do, right, of all of creation, and that sometimes physical evils are allowed because he wants the greater good of everything. Right? And we know this, I think, from experience, that there's a lot of generosity, a lot of moral good that comes from natural evils that we put up with. Right? This is getting closer to Christianity. Right? That enduring the cross, that enduring evil, slowly brings about a good in our life. Right? There's a great story about a priest who worked downtown here about 20 years ago, and he was at a parish, and he started to realize that he liked some people better than others at his church, you know, and there were a lot of young people, which is human nature. We like some people better than others, and he realized that it just happened to be that all these people that he liked, like over half of them had a special needs sibling. And he was wondering, like, all of these good traits that he was attracted to, right, seemed to reside in these people who had a sibling with special needs, right? Meaning that their character was just formed by probably helping their sibling, right, a lot throughout their entire life. And a certain amount of physical evil that family endured, right, produced people of great character, of great virtue, of great kindness, and that was one experience of one priest, which is an example of how moral good can be drawn out of physical evil. It's still a hard question. It's still an objection that, again, there's no quick answer to. But these are the ways we can approach it. Any questions about that? Okay. And we'll end with this slide, and this is the Latin phrase for the problem of evil. Right? The mystery of iniquity, the mystery of evil. Right? And it puts us up against the limits of our knowledge. Right? So we've been talking about how rational we are, how we can argue and use our mind. But at the end of the day, we do have limits to our knowledge. Right? And evil is one of those places where we do tend to reach our limit. And this is a great quote which can shed some light on it. The limit of our knowledge is not only a challenge, but is a gift. It leads us into the adventure of going on, of learning, in which our measures of reality expand. Only in the mystery of the incarnate Word does the mystery of man take on light. So as we go forward, I think in the coming weeks we're going to be focusing more and more on Christ. And all of the efforts we've made thus far to learn about ourselves have been good and necessary, but they're only completed by a knowledge of Christ. Only in the mystery of the incarnate Word, only in Christ do we know ourselves. And only in Him do we come to an answer about the problem of evil. Right? And the limits of our knowledge, which we may be hitting here at 8:20 on Sunday night, that is a gift. Because it makes us mad, it makes us want to learn more. Right? It makes us want to go on and seek truth. Okay? And so I think, Joseph, can I see it? I think we have next week. We have the syllabus. So next week, okay, church tour, nature of God. So we'll get there in a few weeks. We have a few weeks until we focus on Christ Himself. But we're getting there. Okay, so this is a little teaser for that class. Okay? So that's tonight's course. Any last questions about ideas we covered? Otherwise, we'll end with a prayer, and then if you'd like to hang around and chat, just hang out. So it'd be great to just chat for a bit, especially if you're still working on finding a sponsor. Okay? So let's pray the Our Father. Okay? And let's stand. The Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Our Father,
who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen.
In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. All right, thanks, guys.